Recently, I wrote and directed my first movie. And while making the movie, I accomplished things that people told me were impossible. I heard impossible for me, impossible for the industry, and impossible for the times that we're all living in. So I thought, when everyone says what you want to do is impossible, then the question really becomes, how do you achieve the so-called impossible? I am here to share a story on how I made this movie. And it is not just a story about the movie, but about what happens when you dare to dream beyond boundaries and beyond the expected, beyond limits. I was born and raised in Florence, Italy, where there is a lot of art, home of the Renaissance, but not many movies. When I was 17, I was called by a famous painter to become his assistant. He was about to do a cycle of 3 frescoes in a church just outside Florence. It was a triptych, 3 frescoes about the Virgin Mary. After spending an entire summer on the scaffoldings, 30 meters high on the church, physically hammering the synopia of the Virgin Mary on the ceiling of the church, and helping with all the process, I realized how you can tell a story with images. He used a technique that was used by Michelangelo, the same technique for 500 years. I started taking an interest in how to tell a story with images. So I decided, let's learn how to tell a story with moving images. I went to film school, and I saw an old black and white Italian movie with really powerful directing. And when I saw that, I thought, this is a job that I can actually do. I started out working on many, many movie sets in all the departments. I worked as a runner, as a PA, all the way up to line producer and up. I worked in camera, grip, and electric. I worked as a focus puller. I worked in third assistant director, second assistant director, in every department. It was a hard work, but I learned a lot of skills in that way. Then I heard that there was a scholarship called Fulbright in film directing. There was one place in Italy, and the deadline is in 2 weeks. A guy that was working there, called Adam Kaplan, he said it was impossible, not because of me, but because there is not enough time to do it. Then, at the time I was working as a director for UNESCO, and the president of UNESCO, Madame Stringa, she said, if you will apply, you will get it. So she convinced me to try. And thanks to her, months later, the sun is rising, it's dawn, I'm on Sunset Boulevard, there is a crew around me, and I'm directing a film. And I thought, wow, the impossible just became visible and real. The Fulbright flew me to DC to visit the Department of State. And for whatever reason, Adam Kaplan went from Florence to DC, and I became his friend, and he became my supporter. So first, you need to have a clear vision. Always listen to everyone, because a good idea is a good idea is a good idea. But do not let naysayers stop your dream. And if you think you can do it, you can do it. If you think you cannot do it, then you cannot do it. I wanted to make a movie that would blend Matrix action with Italian movies. So I started writing a movie about art. Why? Because looking at the world, I realized that everything that we have from anyone that has ever lived before us is actually art in the widest sense of the term, meaning the buildings is architecture, the books, the music. Just look at the world, the sculptures, the paintings. It is art, and it is all that we have left from anyone who has ever lived before us on this planet. So I thought art is like an invisible chain that connects us with mankind. My movie is called American Night. Why? I thought America is a metaphor for the world, because in America, at least in big cities, there's people from any part of the world, and night as a metaphor for the unconscious. The plot revolves around the stealing of an artwork. I chose The Pink Marilyn by Andy Warhol, which is one of the most iconic paintings in history. I started thinking, what is iconic and what is an icon? So Andy Warhol took Marilyn Monroe, who was an icon in cinema. He took her picture and turned it into something else. He made an icon out of an icon. She was an icon of popular culture, pop culture, and he made her into an icon of pop art. So when writing the story in terms of character, I chose the style of noir. I love noir, plus in noir movies, all the characters are double. They're all double-crossing each other. For example, the hero is not just a hero, he's an anti-hero, which means he does the right thing, but for the wrong reason. I really love movies that take you on a journey, that take you in a different world, like an experience, like going to a rock and roll concert. So I thought, let's create a world. For example, in film theory, they say any story is a story of a hero who is on a journey. He faces challenges, and then at the end, he gets the magic potion, the treasure, the girl, and he learns a lesson, and he's changed. Now, I don't think this is true in life. Looking at people, people never really change unless they really want to and put the effort. So I thought, let's write a story about characters who, in the end, will accept who they are, will accept who they were at the beginning. They will accept their true nature. Now, of course, this doesn't apply to any movie, but it does to this movie, because I wanted to create a world. And when you create a world, you give it rules. For example, with the composer Marco Beltrami, we took the Ave Maria by Schubert, which is a very iconic piece of music, and we turn it into something else, which is not doing a cover, it's actually taking an icon and make it into something else. Same with costumes. I told the costume designers, yes, in film theory, on the next day, the character will change clothes, but we're not going to do that. They will wear always the same clothes, because there's very few but very iconic movies in which the characters do not change clothes, such as Blade Runner, all the Sergio Leone's westerns, Clockwork Orange, Pulp Fiction. Same with cinematography. I told the cinematographer, we're not just going to point the camera and get any color. Let's use colors as a storytelling device. So you only have three colors. You have the three primary colors. You have red, blue, and yellow. That's it. Unless something happens in the characters' lives, in this character's story, then we see green, then we see purple, then we see other colors. I did this with a story. I took an Arthur Rimbaud's poem, and I changed it, I put it into the story. I did this in production design. I told the production designer, mix paint with aluminum powder before you paint the walls, so that the walls would actually reflect, and by reflecting the characters, will create doubles. I set out to make an English language movie, and then I heard from producer the word impossible, because in Italy they make Italian language movies. I wanted to make an action movie, and they said, forget about it, not been done in Italy in the last 30 years. And I wanted to be about art. And with the support of my producer Marta and many women like Heike and Wenwen, the impossible became possible. So I called the main character John Kaplan as an homage to the guy who told me it was impossible and then became my friend and my supporter. Let me tell you what happened when writing and doing all the process that takes to do a movie. While directing, you need to do the best directing work that you can. You need to render the best services that you can as director. You need to work harder than anyone else. You need to push the limits. For example, with casting, I had the dream about having Hollywood actors. And a Hollywood professional, many, many years, told me it's impossible. I said, okay, let's just do the next step. Let's just send the script. And then the actors started responding to the material. And I had a ha-ha moment. The impossible just became possible. So don't listen to the naysayers. We shot the movie on budget, on schedule. We shot car chases, real-life explosions. with the lead actor in front of the explosion and the camera in front of the explosion, and everything went well. We started editing the movie in Rome, in Italy, with an American editor, Zach Steinberg, who won an Oscar for The Matrix. But then a pandemic arrived in Italy. So we had to pause. He had to go back to Los Angeles. We were trying to figure out how do we do this. At the time, there were 2 softwares that would allow for the remote editing. In simple words, he would hit play in Los Angeles, and I would see the movie in Rome. But this didn't work for me, because it was not the same experience as being with Zach in the same room and look at all the monitors, all the screens that allow for editing. They said, this is all that we have. And I said, I'm sorry, it doesn't work for me. In the end, the software company wrote a software for Zach. A software was created for this film. The impossible just became not only real, but incredible. And everyone who has edited a movie in the last 2 years, in the world, they did it with the software that was created for this movie. Then I really wanted to have Hollywood heads of department, and they said, it's impossible. I said, why? They're busy for the next 3 years. I said, okay, let's not listen to the naysayers. Then a pandemic arrived. And suddenly people that were busy for the next 2 years were available. Turns out, 4 Oscar winners or nominees, 2 Golden Globe winners, even guys that were working with Steven Spielberg up until the week before ended up working on my movie. And I thought, wow, the impossible just became possible. I wanted to make a movie for a theatrical experience. And they said, again, the word impossible. I asked why, and they said, a first-time director from Italy has never been released in the US theatrically. I said, what does it mean? They said, okay, look at Fellini's movies. His 4th or 5th movie was released in the US, not the first one. But I chose to believe, and we did the process for a theatrical release. I followed the vision and not listened to the naysayers. The movie was released in the US, theatrically, and the impossible just became possible. Now I'm reading the comments online, and somebody is writing, Hollywood always make the same action movies. And I'm thinking, wow, it was just me and a dream, and now they think it's Hollywood. The movie was released everywhere in the world, in the US, in Canada, in Russia, in Japan, Taiwan. The movie was released as a Sky Originals in the UK. So in the US, they think I'm Hollywood, and in the UK, they think it's a Sky Originals. Wow. They told me I couldn't even make the movie, and I'm Hollywood now. So impossible, impossible, impossible becoming real, visible, and incredible. And it looked much better than I thought. We did the premiere at Venice Film Festival, and the pop star Anastasia sang the title song called American Night on a floating stage on the lagoon. And the audience watched the movie sitting in the gondolas. Watching our film before an international audience was incredible, and it was a celebration not just of our movie, but of hard work and of turning the impossible into possible. Then American Night was featured at the Golden Globes, and they wrote about it. Wow, the impossible just became possible, and better than I thought. After the Venice premiere, I got an email from the Oscars. The Academy requested a copy of the script of my movie to be studied and preserved to be a part of what they call the Academy Permanent Core Collection. I thought it was spam. I thought it was phishing. So I called the number. It was real. It was the Academy Awards. They said they wanted to keep a copy of the script in their collection so that people can study it in the future. I thought, wow, the impossible just became possible. They said the movie was impossible, and now it's in the Oscars collection. This is a story not just about making a movie. Each one of us has our own American Night. Something that seems impossible, or they will tell you it is impossible. A dream, a goal, a desire. So how do you achieve the impossible? Have a vision. Follow your vision. Dream. Believe. Keep walking even if you can't see. Just do the next step, and the road will appear. Be inspirational. During the pandemic, we faced huge difficulties. But I always told people, yes, these are very strange times, but let's remember to be human. Don't listen to naysayers. You need to see what others cannot see. Be creative, be the founder, be kind. Put the work. And the impossible will not only become possible, but it will also become real. Thank you.